1.
My name is Abe Schwartz. Was born in Poland in 1921, May the 1st, a small town, Kraszniewice. It's central Poland, between halfway Posen and Warsaw, between Lodz and Gdańsk, right in the center. We used to call it Congress Poland, center Poland. And that's where I was brought up to my age of 16, 17. Between time, I was away from home and got back home. But the war started in 1939, which the Germans invaded Poland. I think it was, if I can call correct, I remember the day and the month. I think it was wasn't August or something. That's
September 1st, 1939.
September, yeah. Poland was invaded, and the town I was born, this population about 15,000. Our Jewish population was between 16 and 1,700. Our percentage was real high because the most Jewish people lived in metro cities. And most of the time we lived in a Jewish neighborhood too, which most population was. The reason we lived there, because Poland was hard life for Jewish peoples. The anti-Jewish movement was very strong. It's hard to explain or to come from religious background, but from the German side, because that's where we lived there. So the reason, more or less, we had to live in an area that we can defend ourselves. And that's what we did. Schools was mixed. I went to mixed school, Jews and non-Jews. But still, our name had to be called out by our Jewish identity. And when the Germans come, a lot of Jewish peoples was picked, even by the Polish peoples was identified with Jews. And start getting the Jewish peoples, we had to wear stars right away in the beginning to identify who is Jews and non-Jews. A lot of times if the Jews didn't wear the stars, the Poles show them who they are and turn us in even to the Germans. At the time we heard a lot of rumors. In the East, the Soviet Union had the borders open for Jews, which a youngster, me, 17-year-old, and my parents wouldn't let me. I did it without my parents knowing. I escaped from Poland and went to the Soviet borders, which was not so easy to cross the border. But if you identified yourself, you happen to be a Jew, we went through to the Bug, a water. The Bug, which if you want to translate in English, means God. That was the name from the river. But we somehow, we crossed the river. We went to occupy, the time was occupied by the Soviets. When in 1939, Germany invaded Poland. They made some pact with the Soviets. Soviet took part Poland, and Germany took part Poland. And there, the part we escaped, being there, I know life wasn't easy under the Soviets in the time, but you could survive. At least you wasn't killed, you was not driven to a ghetto, you was not picked up because you were a Jew. You had to keep silent, not to be anything against the government. If you're not against the government, you had some chances. I don't want to say it was sweet, but it still was, you had a chance to survive. And I met a lot of friends of mine that says, what is now? Now we should go back to home, to Poland, cross the border again, tell our parents, let's get, for Germany, we already noticed what Germany is doing. Brutal, Jews with beards, cut them off, the beards, burn synagogues. And I said, there's no place for here, we will not survive, we have to escape. Whoever will survive in the East will survive, which was no conditions good to live. We lived in, even when I went to the East, I lived in shelters, various churches, synagogues, and so on. Wherever we could find a roof over our head, we survived. We lived there. I was there about a month, and me and a couple of friends of mine, he said, let's go back and tell the little town, get out. Get out and pack up wherever we can. But after I went home, I brought a message to my parents. And the message was my father says in the Jewish language, I want to die in my own bed, which my father had his family, his father and his mother. And he says, God bless you, says, if you, we give you all blessing, go back. I try and get my brother. I have two brothers and a sister, which one brother lives in Minneapolis, Minnesota now. I brought him over here. I brought him to Israel. And we was united to leave. So I leave the town. I was captured. Somehow was turned in, I don't know from whom. And I was captured in the time and sent to labor force.
When was that?
In 1940. I was sent over to the labor force, not far on the German border, place where they call it not far from Boschen, which that is a place before the war of all the German, Hitler took the German Jews, expelled from Germany. That's the way, it's not far from Posen. And then we went, used to call it Reichsautobahn camp. That's where Hitler and Germany in the time already was preparing war with the Soviets to build freeways. Reichsautobahn means a freeway. That's what Germany still today, they call it today, the Autobahn. Took us to work. They're supposed to build, they said from Moscow to Warsaw, where the plane was from Moscow to Berlin, from Berlin to Moscow, excuse me. They said from Berlin to Moscow. We worked there for, I think, the late 42. Not the only one, but they kept moving you around. They never kept you in the same camp too long. Maybe they didn't want you get too acquainted with the area. But then we moved to and the food was not very bad in the time. Even the workforce camps wasn't much better than Auschwitz and concentration camps. The food was very poorly, but when we went out to work in the field, whatever we could, we had to grab from the earth to survive. And meantime, we was receiving still in 1940 from my parents, from my mother. My dad was taken away from home with his father to a camp too. My father and his father. And my father had one arm. He lost one arm in the First War. He was a veteran. And I received from my father, if I can recall, maybe in 41, from some camp, one message, no more. From my mother and my sister, I received still a letter, I think late 41. He says, that's the last letter which you will ever receive from us. Because they lived in the ghettos. There wasn't, because when I left, they created the ghettos, so and that's I never heard from my mother and my sister. I was with my younger brother, but then they took away my younger brother from me. He was sent to Auschwitz before me from a different camp. And the way I heard, there was an uprising in Auschwitz, Birkenau. My brother was in it, and he was escaped. And I think he lost his life in late 44. He joined the army, the underground, and then when the Russian, the Poles, started coming in, that's what I heard from people which know him. With people he escaped. And in late 43, I met my brother in Auschwitz, the older one, which we were separated in 1940. We were separated from home. I was arrested in 40 and he was arrested in 41. And he was in Auschwitz, 42, he was sent to Auschwitz.
How did you get from the camp to Auschwitz?
By train. When they load us for trains, they brought us to Birkenau. And trains in the kettle cars, maybe they packed in and it was hot. I can't recall how many, what the sardines they packed us in. When they opened the door in Birkenau, when we come from the working camp to Auschwitz, when they opened the doors, half of them just fall out, dead. Whoever made it, made it. I would say about 60%. And in the 60%, they made just whoever was lucky, they put us left and right. And I can recall, but I was called left or right, but so my friends, there was young people, wherever they went, and I ran with them. And I would say from the transport we come, maybe 25% was brought into the working force. The rest was disappeared. We couldn't tell you where disappeared. And from there out, it was to January 45 in Auschwitz. Buna, Auschwitz. We was there. And then they took us in the night because the Russians started hitting coming from the east. And we had to walk in the night, I don't know how many miles, and the German Gestapos in the time was with dogs and everything and chasing us and speed. Whoever could make it was shot down, right in the ditches and whoever we could. We got to a city, Gleiwitz, then put us again on cattle trains that took us to Buchenwald. And not in railroads. It was 20, 30 below zero. I can, very cold, no clothes. They loaded us for 200 in them open cattle cars. And there was so many, a lot of jumped out from the trains. Some of them got shot, whatever we know about it. And a lot of them just froze and died. And by every station we stopped, I know we threw out maybe between 5 and 10% dead bodies over the top. And sometimes we even took the dead bodies to cover ourselves up because not to get a little bit warm. Before we come to Buchenwald. We came to Buchenwald, and there was, I wasn't too long there. From Buchenwald I was moved out again. But the thing was very horrible. Even Buchenwald, we could walk on the place and we saw what, you could talk to a person. While you was talking to him, he just collapsed. Because food, some you got some, if you could stay enough on your feet, long enough, you got your little soup and your plate. But if you, most of them fall down before they can get their food. And that's, we got that from Buchenwald. But before that, so it says you want to know about our life in the hall and thing. We had very little support from the civilian population at the time over them years, very little. And I don't know what to say. I mean, this was a horrible thing. And when the war ended, we went back home. But the life was, we went to the hometowns. Nobody was there. Ghost towns. Everybody looks with you like sorry. And I was about 2 months there, and then I was trying to go to the Middle East. I couldn't find nobody. I came from, my father come from family from 7. My mother come from family from 10. I had over 100 first cousins. From my father's side, nobody survived. From mother's side, I think about 4 survived, first cousins. Over 100 relations, nobody survived. And that's done. Well, it was a very horrible thing. And my parents, I never heard of, I think there was between 40 and 41. I lost them. But I came to the place, but it's facts and thing, what everybody saw Hashoah, a little town Chelmno, that's what my mother, my sisters, all Jewish peoples from there was or the criminated, that was criminated or buried or whatever they did, was there in a little town Chelmno. That's not far from Posen either. And I hope this never will come. But I don't know. But even after the war, that's a horrible thing. I hope never will repeat. And I can go back. You more and think about it. When I was arrested, was my father and my grandfather. Stand was a little fence. And when I said goodbye to my father, I never forget. My father was a 6'2", very tall man. I think that's the first time I can recall. He had to hug me around and kiss me. He says, son, he says, take care of yourself. I know you will make it. You got to make it. So my grandfather, he says, somebody got to live over and tell the world what happens, how could be done one human to other. And that's, I think, is always in my memory. He never said to me about revenge, about a hostile, but that's, I can remember the tears in his eyes says, if you will make it, if you ever live and make it, tell the world what happened. We're not going to make it. They knew they wouldn't make it. And even in concentration camp, I can recall, there was a lot of people who give up. They never made it. You had to live with a spirit, I will make it, I got to tell the world. So then maybe I was the lucky one, maybe 1% or the 5%, the ones made it. But the ones give up never made it. If you give up before, there's no way you can make it.
What did you do that made you not give up? How did you act, especially when you were in Buna Auschwitz?
I act because I was raised a young boy, went to mixed school, Jews and non-Jews. We ate the same food. We enjoyed the same playground. And I said, why? Because why is it different? Why should it be... I speak the same language, speak the same food, and why? Why? Because my generations back was born with a different religion? I think this, I couldn't figure out. Because I never went to a segregated school. I went to a mixed school, Polish and non-Jews and non-Jews. I had a lot of friends, even non-Jews. But when the war started, somehow or another, I lost them. When I needed help, I lost them. I don't know where they went. I lost them. And after the war, I went back to look for them. Some I found. The answer was we were scared. But I hope the world will learn from the past, ensure the future. That's not to be afraid. One guy, if we together, could happen to every one of them. Even today in that country, today we see today, you see the paper every day, or this KK or the Nazi Party in that country. We say our amendment calls for freedom of speech and freedom. I can't understand that. Where's the freedom of speech and the freedom of religion when you take away the right, the other nationality to live? Take the white promises, whatever they call themselves. It's the same thing started in 1933. I don't know what a Jewish mother or a black mother says today. When she sees that's on television, she reads in the paper, America without Jews, America without black. What an American black mother, an American Jewish mother said when she lost her son, or her father lost his son in the battle or in Vietnam or in Germany, and today you take away his right. I can see that. That's the same way it happened to us in Poland. We Jewish people, we served the Polish army, we was obeyed citizens, and then we were segregated. Why? That's the answer, we can answer. That's, I hope, we forgive, we forget, but I think never should it be forgotten. the world should remember could happen to any one of them, which happens today even in the world, or there's an island or someplace, the religious fights. I still can't understand, because I was, why is it? And I hope the future generations learn from the past. They do more, teach the children in schools that peoples and people should get along better. Same thing. We all of us, very obeyed citizens. We pay our taxes. There comes a professor in Western University, which he gets paid for taxpayers' money. You can't say today there was no Holocaust. Now, how can we accept that? We know it was there. I think we should bring more to the children. The time is running short. There's still a few people left, American soldiers or the foreign soldiers, where they liberated concentration camps, non-Jews, American citizens, where they give their life for the camps, where they liberated concentration camps. I think that should be called and told the kids to pass the story, and should be remembered that.
Mr. Schwartz, for these children, could you describe a day in Buna from morning till night as best you...
Well, how to describe Buna? Buna, we had no crematoriums in Buna. The crematorium was Buna, was Birkenau. Buna was in German, in Polish, I think the name was Monowice. I'm not good in area. I would say it was between 20 and 30 miles around the area, fenced around. They built a big factory where they call it IG Farm Industry in German. In English translated means IG
Farben.
Farben means...
Wasn't that the name?
Yeah, farm industry. I can say what they built there. They was producing chemicals. What kind of chemicals? We would know it. They made gasoline from coal. Artificial gasoline was produced from coal. All kind gases, whatever it is. And there was 1.5 miles away from our camp. Every morning, we used to get up 6 o'clock in the morning. Was made by 150 commandos. Each factory had so many people to work. We had cable, like electric commandos, plumbers, glazers.
What did you do?
In the beginning, I was in just the cable commander, which was dirt, digging ditches. But after a year, I was there and got a couple of friends. We had, like, I saw on paper they're looking for glazers, putting glass in windows. So I got over there to the, they used to call it Arbeits.
Works.
Whatever it is, Arbeits. I registered myself, that's I know about glass. They put me, that's commando, and we went to Buna, to the factory where they was building, broken windows and that, which with carpenters, I was in the maintenance department. And I was working in the maintenance department, which was a little bit easy. The work wasn't so hard. But it wasn't long. That's what I did, glass work and carpenter work. I did most maintenance work. After being by 8 months, did all kind of work. That's what I did in Buna. And every morning, we used to go out with the Gestapo, take us out to work, and coming back, if anybody, well, we was count out, like 100, 20, 50. If one was missing, coming back, we could stay so long, a cold, snow, or the rain, before everybody get back.
What was the longest you ever had to stand to be counted?
The longest we ever had to stay is in Buna. maybe an hour. But the longest I ever had to stay was, I think, 36 hours in an Arbitz camp not far from Posen. And either was the year, somehow, if you can recall, it was cold. The night of the Crystal Night, there was, I think, 2 years later, 3 years later, they let us stay 36 hours. And just happened the same time, 2 escaped from our labor camp. And we had to stay so long, and they got cut. When they brought them back, we stayed 36 hours in the cold outside. And they cut the 2 of them. They brought them back, and they built a galleon, and they hung them there. Then we was released when the 2 was founded. But that was a labor camp not far from Poznan in Poland.
When did the workday end?
The workday end in Buna, by Auschwitz, daylight to daylight. They wouldn't let us be outside in the dark. We couldn't be outside in the dark. Oh, I would say about 10 hours was in Buna work. But in the labor camps was more hours. Because sometimes we had to walk to work an hour and a half. And an hour and a half back is 3 hours walking with guards, and by 8, 9 hours work in the summer. In the winter time, you work a bit less because the days were shorter.
You went to Buna rather early in the history of the camp. Was there tattooing going on at that time?
So you walked into Buna. When we come from Birkenau, we was taken with the trucks to Buna. And after we got through the showers, after they decided who to live and who to die, who they took away back to the crematoriums, who left to stay, that's where they had big cells, maybe 500, and still rain and water inside, and everybody, and they had to get their number. That's why they give us our numbers. That was sure you walked in when they decided to live or to die, and the one was still, because that's the only thing identification we had is the number. We don't went by name, we don't went by nothing. That's number, and the same number we had right on our jacket. We never been called by names. We had no names. Then papers, the only thing we had by numbers. When they need me, my name was 144-404. That's it's only the only name you had is 144-404. No other name. The names was what it did. We don't know.
You spoke of being liberated, but you were liberated in Germany.
Yes.
How did that come about, and what are some of your thoughts?
When I was liberated, we didn't know what to do, whether to cry or to laugh, whether we was happy or sad. You never know. You walked around and you came back in the town. You was raised with so many friends, relatives. And finally, it took me a week to get home. And I walked down, it was a ghost town. 3 Jewish people came back from 1500. You went back, you walked around. Some Polish people were very helpful, some of them. Tried to take you to their home, but that's, we don't know, we don't know whether to be sad or. We walked in the market in the little town. We saw Jewish stones from the cemetery, plastered the streets. And I can remember why that. I had an aunt when I was a kid. Now, I don't remember that. She passed away because I had a younger sister was named after her. She must have passed away very young, very young. And always we went on the Jewish cemetery. There was a memorial standing there where a branch, that's, I never forget it, it's something you can't forget in your life. A branch a little tree. It's a tree, and two little branches is breaking down, is hanging down, and two little birds hanging on the little branches. There was a signal when she died awful young. They left two small kids. When I walked in that market, I saw that stone right twisted in that central market. And I think that was the worst sadness. I think I stand down and start crying. And we come back, buy a few more. We made a city, which they did it, removed every memorial stone, removed them stones, took back in the Jewish cemetery. But I can recall, but you couldn't find where to put them. I think that all was put in one place, set back, but no more where the graves are. But I think this was a very sad stuff when I saw that. I could see it from far away. And when a little tree and the two little branches are breaking down. The two little birds is falling down. The branches with the birds. I think it was a signal for she young died.
A life cut short.
Yeah, life cut short and the birds are falling down. They're sitting on that tree.
But you said you had escaped from the work camp before you were liberated by the Russians. What did you do during that period?
We was in beginning February, I was in January late. I was removed from Buchenwald, and I was sent to Magdeburg, which Magdeburg was a branch from Buchenwald. Magdeburg was a branch from Buchenwald. We used to call it the Polterwerke. That was Krupp manufacturing, which they built tanks in the time from the war. I think it was very known, one of the largest in Europe, in the world. And I think they built something else I can recall. But at the same time, there was the city so bombed heavily. They took the brothers from Buchenwald, took I don't know how many, I remember, I can't recall how many, with railroads, trucks, and took us to Magdeburg. For that purpose, to work on the state, clean up the rebels, to dig out the bodies, whatever it is. But the buildings were so bombed. Me and a couple friends of mine, we decided, because we saw how many been shot and killed on the transportation. We would say that if the day comes, they're not going to leave us alive, then I don't think so Germany wanted witnesses to tell the world what happened. And I think our mind was to tell the world what happened. We just took a chance under the rebels, under the buildings. We hide it out, and we hide it out there the whole night. Early, but I can recall we lived without a time, without a day. You live just wait another day, another night, the time, and we took a chance in the morning. I don't know. Was still dark. We crawled out. We didn't know the directions, but we saw a bridge. We crossed in the city. We crossed the bridge. We saw water. That was the Elbe. Yes, we crossed the Elbe, and we got away 20 miles, 30 miles in period of a couple of days. Not in one day, not in one night. Our walking was in the night, not in the daytime. In the daytime, we hide it in the woods. We hide it, they had them sewer pipes, 2, 3 foot high under the roads. We hide it in them sewer pipes in day. Our food, we used to go out, first couple of days, we didn't have no food. But then we found a lot of Germans. We walked out, we could find guns and rifles laying in the street, because the Germans escaped from the Russian front and was escaping to the west. And then we found out that the Americans were sitting towards the Elbe, and they're going to go no farther. And I think the Germans knew at the time they were scaling the bridge, and we couldn't go back. Because the Americans, they said, the rumors, the Americans don't let them through. And we found at the time people with all kind of languages. English, we had British, even American maybe was shot down from planes that was not captured from the Germans anymore. But the Germans, when was shooting going on, bombing going on, you didn't see them. When it was getting quiet, they just come out from nowhere and escape from, a lot of Germans at the time already escaped from the fronts. And food, you ask me how we survive with food. We had to go in the night, even daytime at the time, go to farmers. We trek and get food. Most of the time, they give it to us. Because I think the Germans know the war was lost. And when we walked in, had a couple, one was a Russian fellow, a Jewish Russian fellow, with a gun to their head and walked the farm and said, "We are Jews." And remember, that's all we wanted, food. We wouldn't hurt nobody. But we didn't hurt nobody. That's all we want is food. We didn't want nobody.
Did you yourself have a gun or a rifle?
Yes, we had guns. I was not very good to shooting on it. I wasn't. But we had to have it just to, to scare people. But they give us food. The Germans in the time give us, but if the shooting was going quiet, it used to come on, no. They didn't. But you had to get it with one, but we didn't hurt nobody. Just all we want is food. And then when we were sitting farther, sometimes we even went in the city, in little villages in Germany, in the broad daylight. After we changed our clothes, you know, we had our prison clothes, we took our clothes off and got in civilian clothes. And some we got in the stores. We could even, they give to us. But most of the time when we went in, we said, "We are Jews." And remember, we took names from there. We didn't mean to harm anybody. Where the relation live, and they give us all kind of relation. As if anything happened to us, if you turn us in to the arts tour, we used to call it, we will be back. And that would be, we will burn the place or something, but we didn't mean that. We didn't. We just did it to survive.
And after the Russians came through, what happened?
The Russians came. We saw in the tanks, officers, all kind, and a lot of them speak the Jewish language on the tanks with the real loud. He said, "Brothers, sisters, get out. You free." Even in Jewish languages.
What did that sound like?
Schwestern, Brüder, get out. Kimserois, ihr seid frei. And we could see the tears and the crying was going on. And they told us, most of them, soldiers, the Soviets, the Jewish soldiers who came, I think they was Polish. See, in 1939, with the Soviets and the Germans divided Poland, the Soviet Union annexed the part Poland, like we call it Białystok, Vilna, Brest, Litevsk. They're annexed. That's part from the other side. The book, and they right away become Soviet citizens. When the Germans started invading, either they got deep to the Soviet Union, and there was Russian citizens. When there was Russian citizens, they joined, and they had to serve in the Soviet army. The ones, some Polish Jews again, the one escaped to the Soviet Union from the Polish territory, that was not Soviet citizens. They joined the Polish Liberation Army. See, there was a Polish army and the Soviet army. But the most of them in Berlin come the Russian army, not the Polish. But they come in on the tanks, and they give us a lot of support in the time. But the support didn't mean anything. We didn't, after you was free, you was not hungry. Even if you need a day or two, the food wasn't the problem. The problem was then, what will I do now? You know, you couldn't find nobody. You know, we we back to Poland. We saw young children. I was about 2 months living in Poland, between 2 and 3 months in Poland. And there was a lot of going on with Jewish children been given away, left in the streets, which Polish families, there was some small percentage, so a lot of them, Jewish children were saved, and then if somebody survived, they come and wanted the children back. Wasn't easy to get them, but through court, I think some of them got it. Some of them been bought it back, and then all them children, some of them been brought back to France later, to the West. And a couple friends of mine, one is in Los Angeles today, he's very active in the Wiesenthal, he's very active there. He approached me and we was trying to get them children, bring them to the border, to the Polish, East German border through, or the Polish-Czechoslovakian border, and bring them to the West. But we worked for a while, a little bit together, but then I found out, I heard rumors, one of my brothers is alive, which, then I left Poland. I was very uncomfortable.
Why?
I was uncomfortable. I went to lodge, a large Jewish population, wasn't there. The area where the ghetto was, destroyed. There was no future for us. I couldn't see no sense staying there. You know, every stone was a graveyard. Every city, we went to the villages where my family used to live. Nobody's there. Is anybody returned? No. And never average a city, 2 returned, 3 returned. Like in my hometown from 1500, just returned maybe 3, and then another here. Because some of them more survived, but they never got back to Poland. They survived in West Germany. Some survived in Bergen-Belsen. Some survived in Dachau, but that was West Germany. But they never returned home. But I would say, from my hometown, from 1500, I think some of them survived the Soviet Union. They come back, but 120 survived in the time, no more. But half of them, not from the concentration camps, from the Soviet Union. Men, male. From female, from women, maybe 2 of them survived, no more, from my hometown, no more. For men survived, I think 120 in the time, which today getting less and less and less. And I would say half of them went to Israel.
What made you decide to come to the United States?
I want to go to Israel. In fact, I was packed and everything go to Israel. My brother went to Israel. But I got married in 1946, my wife, and her brother, he lives here in Columbus, came to the United States first. And life was very hard in the time in Israel, which my brother left early there. He helped fighting the establishment of the State of Israel. He went on leave at the time. He went to Israel, and I got a lot of letters. I had some friends there. He said, "Hey, if you're in the United States, maybe you can help better your brother in Israel in the time." And my wife wanted to come very badly here. Her brother was already here.
Was she a survivor too?
Yes, she's a survivor, and he's a survivor. And my wife had an uncle here in New York, Brooklyn, New York. He used to live in Bensonhurst, where I say, here in Brooklyn. And we still want to see her family. That's the reason we decided to come to the United States. We came here in late 49, December 49. That's decided me to come over here. In the late 60s, I brought my brother over here from the state of Israel.
How has life been here?
Well, I've been good. It's my son was born here. I educate my children here. and very, very good professions. And life was very good to us in the United States, and I don't think there's no other place in the world which you can express everything right here. I think it's the greatest country in the world. And I'm happy I came over here, and it's the greatest place in the world to live. If anybody, that's why you have to live someplace else for a short while, then you know how to appreciate this country. There's no greater in the world. But it's still, from the past, should be more taught the children in the schools. And I think it's never should to be, like I said, we forgive, we forget, but never should to be forgotten. Because that's happened, it could happen again. If the generations to come will not work on it, mutual, together, peoples with peoples, could repeat. And I hope never, never again.
You told me about a trip to Israel and to Cairo.
Yes. It's the way it happened to me a few years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. I went to Israel, me and my wife, we always travel together. A few are very good friends of ours from Columbus. I'm afraid to mention them, I may miss some of it, you know. I went with a group with Rabbi Rubenstein, We was in the airport in Ben Gurion's airport in Tel Aviv. And then we saw children, very happy children, smile on their faces, teachers with all kind of musical instruments, very happy children. And we very enjoyed much in Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv, or Delud, whatever you want to call it. And we went to Cairo, to Egypt. We went on the plane. When we arrived in Cairo, and we was the so short flight, and you don't even get out from the chairs, and before you have maybe a drink or a cup of coffee, you are in Cairo. When we stand we see a lot of commotion. We turn around, and a friend of mine here in Columbus, I can't recall who was it, Rabbi Rubenstein, or Mr. Norman Gurovitz, a very dear friend of mine, says, look at there. We saw children, Egyptian children, stand close to the plane when the plane arrived with flowers in their hands. And Israeli children, Jewish children, come down from the plane. And each Egyptian child greeted a Israeli child with a flower and a hug and a embrace. I think that was a time I had tears in my eyes. I thought, why can the world live together like that? When children can live so close, it means you got to teach. You got to teach. Hate comes from teaching. There's no hate can come from themselves. They had to be taught someplace. If we can teach the world the love like I saw them children, I think it was the greatest emotional moment in my life when I saw that. It was more now, but that was one of my greatest. When I saw them children was greeting each other. That was in Cairo in the airport.
Is there anything else you'd like to add? Is there anything else you would like to add?
Well, a lot of things. I don't know, what can I add more? I said many times, I'm repeating myself several times, the same question.
That's okay.
That's in the generations to come, it's in their hand. Regardless, race, religion, creed. To teach each other, to love each other, and place to hate each other. Like I mentioned before, we see on TV, we got various groups in our country today. We saying there's freedom of religion or freedom of speech. I can buy that. If you take away a denying a right to live existence, some other people's, that is not freedom of mind. Maybe I disagree with one amendment, the Constitution. You know, that's one amendment I disagree. I disagree with the amendment. I agree. Freedom of speech and freedom of religion. So long you don't take away the right to existence each other. That's my opinion. And I'm strict with it. And I'm for it. But that's I hope never the world ever experience more.
Do you think you might ever go back to visit Poland?
I don't know. I may will. My lifetime before I die, I would like my children. They want to. I still want to go back. Maybe laying flowers, Auschwitz. Maybe I don't know. I may go back to Auschwitz one time. It's a terrible memory. It's when my wife's side, she had no family. She lost all on her side. And I lost over 100 cousins, all my uncles, aunts. I never had, after the war, no aunt, no uncle ever survived. I don't want more to say. Sometimes you get speechless. And some it's hard to believe if you don't see it with your own eyes. How people could be cruel to peoples. I don't know how. I know it's in other countries, I think. Other teaching, I think, schools from the Holocaust. They do. It's nothing should be taught. Because this could happen to any one of them, like I mentioned before. Under a dictatorship, no matter that could be under Stalin or was the Hitler, if under a dictatorship, if you don't like some type of peoples, if you're against you, you're going to exterminate them, which this is very wrong. It's the only country in the world where we live, we can say our expression, we can have feeling. We got Democrats, Republicans. Over there in the dictatorship, you got one party and that's it. You better, if you don't vote for them, you're gone.
Okay. Thank you very much.